Have you ever opened your mouth in English and suddenly felt your brain go empty, even though you know the words? Like the words are in your head, but there is a locked door between your thoughts and your voice. And the worst part is that people are looking at you, waiting, and you can feel the seconds getting heavier. If that feeling is familiar, I want you to stay with me, because the truth is, it is not your intelligence that is missing. It is not more grammar that you need. For many adult learners, fluency begins the moment you stop trying to sound perfect and start allowing yourself to sound real. For a long time, I believed fluent English was something you earned after enough courses, enough textbooks, enough grammar rules, enough vocabulary lists. I thought there was a final level, like a video game, and once you reached it, you would unlock fluent speaking. But my reality looked very different. I could read articles. I could understand movies if I had subtitles. I could even write a polite email at work. Yet when it came to speaking, my mouth moved slowly. My sentences were too careful, and my confidence was extremely fragile. One small mistake, and I would panic, start translating in my head, and then I would speak even worse. Maybe you know that pattern. You prepare a sentence inside your mind. You rehearse it like a performance, and then the conversation changes. The other person asks a different question, or they speak faster than you expected, and suddenly your prepared sentence is useless. So you freeze. And later, when you are alone, you remember everything you wanted to say. You create perfect sentences in your head with perfect grammar. And you think, why could I not say that? Why am I only fluent when nobody is listening? Here is the surprising thing I finally accepted. Speaking is not the same skill as studying. Speaking is not a test. It is a physical and emotional experience. Your mouth, your breathing, your timing, your confidence, your tolerance for mistakes, your ability to keep going even when a sentence is not perfect. That is fluency. And that is why so many people study for years and still feel stuck when they speak. They are training the wrong muscle. When I say I finally started speaking English fluently with no courses and no grammar, I do not mean I never learned grammar in my life. Of course, I learned some, but grammar was not the key that opened the door. The key was something much simpler and, honestly, much more uncomfortable at first. I stopped waiting to feel ready. I stopped trying to build a perfect sentence before I started talking. I started speaking with the English I already had, even if it was simple, even if it was not elegant, even if I repeated myself. And little by little, my brain stopped treating English like a dangerous activity. A lot of adult learners do not realize how much fear is involved in speaking. Not fear like a horror movie, but a quiet fear of being judged, fear of sounding stupid, fear of being seen as less competent, especially at work, where your identity is connected to your skills and your professionalism. You might be brilliant in your job, but in English, you feel like a child. And that gap hurts. So you protect yourself by staying quiet, by speaking only when necessary, by keeping your sentences short, by avoiding situations where you might make a mistake. This protection feels safe, but it also keeps you trapped. I remember moments that still feel very real. Standing in a cafe, wanting to order something simple, but overthinking the exact sentence. Should I say, I would like, or can I have, or may I get? And while I was deciding, the person behind the counter was waiting, and the pressure was rising, and suddenly my pronunciation felt strange in my mouth. I could hear my accent, and it made me even more nervous, like my own voice was betraying me. And after I finally ordered, I would replay it in my head. I would judge myself. I would think about what I should have said. I would turn a 20-second interaction into a 2-hour mental punishment. If you do that, I want you to hear this clearly. That habit is not making you better. It is making you more afraid. It is teaching your brain that speaking equals danger. And your brain is designed to protect you from danger, even if the danger is only embarrassment. So your brain tries to keep you quiet. It slows you down. It makes you search for perfect words. It makes you blank out. Not because you are bad at English, but because you are under stress. So what changed for me? First, I stopped chasing advanced English and started chasing automatic English. Automatic English means you do not need to translate. You do not need to build the sentence like a machine. It comes out while you are already thinking about the next idea. and the way I trained that was almost boring. I chose everyday language and repeated it in real life. I began with the simplest goal. I wanted to speak without stopping, not perfectly, just continuously. Because fluency is not luxury vocabulary. Fluency is movement. It is flow. Think of it like walking. When you walk, you do not think. Left foot, right foot, left foot. You just go. Speaking can feel like that too, but only if you practice speaking as movement, not speaking as a performance. One of the biggest breakthroughs was learning to accept simple sentences. Adult learners often feel ashamed of simple English. They think, I have studied for years. Why am I saying basic things? But basic things are powerful. Basic things are fast. Basic things are reliable. In real conversations, native speakers use simple structures all the time. They say things like, I think, I feel, it depends, I am not sure. That makes sense. Let me check. Give me a second. What do you mean? These phrases are not impressive, but they are the glue of conversation. When I started collecting these natural phrases and actually using them, my speech became smoother almost immediately. And I did something else. I stopped memorizing vocabulary and started memorizing moments. I would think about a real situation I had every day. A meeting, a phone call, a small conversation with a neighbor, a message to a colleague, and I would prepare a few natural sentences for that situation, not to sound perfect, but to reduce stress. Then I would use them again and again until they became mine. For example, at work, instead of trying to sound smart, I practiced sounding clear. I practiced phrases like, just to clarify, what do you mean by that? I can follow up on that. Let me get back to you by tomorrow. I think we are on the same page. I do not have the answer right now, but I will find out. The first time I used sentences like these, my voice shook a little. But I noticed something important. People did not care about my small mistakes. They cared about understanding me. And the more I saw that, the more my fear started to lose its power. Another thing that changed everything was learning to think in English in tiny pieces. Many learners believe thinking in English means having deep thoughts in perfect English all day. That is not realistic. Thinking in English can start with one sentence while you brush your teeth. It can start with naming what you are doing. I am making coffee. I am looking for my keys. I need to reply to that email. This looks good. This is taking too long. It is simple, but it builds a bridge between your life and the language. And when English becomes part of your life, not part of your study time, your brain stops treating it like a special event. I used to translate everything. I would think in my native language first, then translate, then speak. That creates a delay, and that delay creates anxiety. And then anxiety makes translation even slower. It is a loop. So I practiced breaking the loop by allowing myself to use whatever English came first, even if it was not perfect. If I forgot a word, I did not stop. I described it. I used simpler words. I kept moving. Because the real skill is not knowing every word. The real skill is surviving the moment smoothly. Have you ever noticed how children speak a language? They make mistakes constantly, but they do not stop. They do not apologize for every sentence. They do not say, "Sorry for my bad grammar." They just communicate. Adults do the opposite. Adults try to protect their identity. Adults want to sound competent immediately. But language is messy. Even native speakers change their sentences in the middle, repeat themselves, search for words, correct themselves. Fluency includes those things. Fluency is not a perfect line. It is a living thing. I also had to make peace with my accent. Maybe you have an accent too. Of course you do. Everyone does. The goal is not to erase your accent. The goal is to be understood and to feel comfortable in your own voice. When I stopped fighting my accent, I suddenly had more energy for communication. And ironically, my pronunciation improved when I relaxed, because tension makes your mouth stiff. Relaxation makes your speech clearer. Confidence has a sound. There was a moment that made this real for me. I was traveling, and I had to solve a problem, not a textbook problem, a real problem, something with a reservation. I was tired, I was stressed, and I did not have time to create perfect sentences. I just spoke. I used simple words. I repeated myself. I asked the person to repeat. I said, "Sorry, can you say that again more slowly?" I said, "I think there is a mistake with my booking. I paid already. Can you check?" And it worked. I solved it. Later, I realized my English was not special that day. My mindset was. I was focused on the outcome, not on my performance. That is one of the secrets. When you focus on performance, you become self-conscious. When you focus on the message, you become fluent. Not instantly, but naturally. Your attention goes outward instead of inward. And that is what conversation requires. Real conversation is not you speaking at someone. It is you connecting with someone. So I started practicing outward attention in small ways. When I spoke to someone, I tried to genuinely listen instead of preparing my next sentence. I noticed their facial expression. I noticed the emotion. I asked simple, follow-up questions. "Oh, really? What happened? How did you feel about it? That sounds stressful. That is exciting." And something interesting happened. When you ask questions, you reduce pressure on yourself. You also learn natural responses. Conversation becomes a shared activity instead of a solo performance. Now, let me be honest about something. There were days I felt like I was improving. And then suddenly, I had a bad conversation, and I thought I lost everything. That is normal. Fluency is not a straight path. Some days, your brain is fast. Some days, you are tired, stressed, distracted, or emotional, and your speaking becomes slower. That does not mean you are going backwards. It means you are human. The mistake many learners make is they treat one bad moment as proof that they are not good at English. But one moment is just one moment. I also stopped measuring my English by big dramatic goals, like sounding like a native speaker. Instead, I measured progress by smaller signs. Did I speak even though I was nervous? Did I recover after forgetting a word? Did I keep going when I made a mistake? Did I ask for clarification instead of pretending I understood? These are real fluency skills. These are the skills that make you feel free. And there is one more piece that matters a lot for adults: identity. When you speak in a second language, you might feel like you are not fully yourself. Your humor is different. Your personality feels smaller. You might feel less intelligent, less funny, less confident. That can be painful. So you avoid speaking because you want to protect the real you. But here is what I learned. Your English personality grows over time. At first, you are a simple version of yourself. Then, as you get comfortable, your real personality comes back. Your jokes return. Your warmth returns. Your opinions become sharper. Your storytelling gets better. You do not lose yourself. You rebuild yourself in English. If you want a practical way to do that, try this mindset shift. Do not try to speak like a textbook. Speak like you. Use the words you already know to express your real thoughts. If your English is simple, your thoughts can still be real. You can say, I do not like that idea. I am not comfortable with that. I need more time. I am excited, but also nervous. Simple words, real meaning. That is communication. That is confidence. Another thing I did was create moments of speaking that were safe. Not safe as in silent, but safe as in low pressure. I would speak English to myself while walking, not in a weird, dramatic way, just quietly, like thinking out loud. I would describe my day. I would explain a problem I was dealing with. I would practice how I would tell a friend about something that happened. I would repeat the same story a few times in different ways. That repetition is not boring. It is how your brain builds fast pathways. And because I was alone, there was no judgment, so my nervous system could relax. Then, when I spoke to real people, my mouth already had practice moving in English. And please remember this. You do not become fluent by avoiding mistakes. You become fluent by making so many small mistakes that they stop feeling dangerous. Mistakes are not a sign that you are failing. Mistakes are a sign that you are speaking. And speaking is the thing you need. So the next time you are in a conversation and you feel that familiar pressure, try this. Slow down your breathing. Not your speech, your breathing. Give yourself permission to be a normal person speaking a second language. Use a simple phrase to buy time. Let me think for a second. That is a good question. I am not sure how to say it, but I mean. And then continue. Keep moving forward. The goal is not to impress. The goal is to connect. Imagine your English like a river. When you overthink, you are placing stones in the river, trying to control every drop. But rivers do not work like that. Fluency comes when you remove stones, when you allow the water to move. You can guide it, yes. You can learn new phrases, yes. But you cannot force it to be perfect. You allow it to flow. And over time, it becomes stronger, faster, clearer. If you have been waiting for confidence before you speak, I want you to flip that idea. Confidence comes after you speak. Confidence is a result, not a requirement. You speak, you survive, you realize it was okay, and then your confidence grows. That is the real order. And one final thought, because I know many adult learners carry a quiet shame about not being fluent yet. You might think you are late. You might think you should be better by now. But language is not about age. It is about repetition, emotion, and courage. If you are listening to this, you already have something important. You have the desire to change. So today, give yourself a small challenge. Speak 1 minute of English, even if it is to yourself. Tell a simple story. Describe your plans. Explain how you feel. Do it with a calm voice, not a perfect voice. And tomorrow, do it again. One day, you will notice something that feels almost magical. You will be speaking, and you will realize you are not translating. You are not building sentences like a robot. You are just talking. And it will not feel like a big ceremony. It will feel ordinary. You will just be there, in the moment, in English. And you will think, oh, this is it. This is what I wanted. Not perfect English. Real English. The kind that comes from a real person who kept going.